Arcane is a multi-layered story with unexpected twists and dramatic turning points. It has a main storyline and separate character threads, the relationship of Jinx and Vi, and Bess and Mel's intrigues with the Black Rose, Viktor's glorious evolution journey, and more. But what if I told you guys that every event in the series is interconnected thanks to a single character? Someone who barely appears on screen yet drives the plot more than anyone else. That one is Singed. In this video, I will prove that he is the key mechanism behind the entire Arcane storyline. To start with, one of the main themes is the clash between Piltover and Zaun. Piltover stands for order and progress, while Zaun is a lawless world tainted by chemicals. Among these substances, Shimmer stands out, a drug and mutagen created by Singed. It was through Shimmer that Silco rose to become a formidable Chem Baron and establish his power in Zaun. Without Singed's invention, Silco would never have wielded such might and hence never been able to capture Vander, which in turn would not have triggered the chain of events defining many heroes' destinies. One of the first turning points was Vander being taken hostage. Shimmer played a key role in this. When Silco arrived to seize Vander, he wasn't alone. He had a subordinate juiced up on Shimmer. A creature whose alchemy granted superhuman strength let him kill Benzo and capture Vander. Now imagine Singed had never created Shimmer. Silco would have had no enhanced enforcer and been forced to fight alone. We already know how their earlier battles ended. Once, Vander nearly killed his former ally. In a one-on-one duel with no backup, Silco would have stood no chance. And had he lost that day, the entire story could have gone down a drastically different path. Later, when Vander lay dying, it was Shimmer that gave him fleeting vitality, enough for him to get back on his feet briefly and save Vi from the flames. This moment also sealed Vander's fate because after his so-called death, his body ended up in Singed's hands for experiments, turning him into Warwick, a figure who becomes central in Season 2. About 7 years pass after the factory tragedy. This time skip reveals how Zaun is changed under the influence of Shimmer, which Singed and Silco continue to distribute. Shimmer spawns many developments. It is the reason Echo forms his Firelight Gang, building a haven for those needing defense. Thanks to Shimmer, we also witness the fateful reunion of Echo and Jinx years later. Plus, illegal trade in the substance draws Caitlyn's attention. As she investigates, she uncovers hints leading to the terrorist Jinx, Silco's underground business, and ultimately Vi, whom Caitlyn frees from prison. Thus, one alchemical experiment sparks a whole chain reaction, shaping many characters' fates. Singed likewise played a vital role in Viktor's destiny. As a child chasing a toy boat that drifted into the muddy sewage pits, Viktor ran into a mysterious scientist, a disgraced doctor, so to say, whose experiments defied moral and ethical norms. That man was none other than Singed. Even then, he tried to guide Viktor, yet the youngster, with a pure and inquisitive mind, that shunned the scientist's ruthless methods. But years later, when his illness steadily worsened, Viktor started to grasp the meaning behind Singed's words. He realized that conventional science was powerless, and only radical transmutation might save him. At this pivotal crossroads, Singed reappeared, not with preaching but with real means to initiate Viktor's arcane transformation. Thus, Viktor, who once despised the scientist's extremes, took his own step down a path where the line between salvation and horrifying sacrifice thinned more and more. Besides Warwick and Viktor, Singed heavily influenced Jinx's fate as well. After the catastrophic explosion on the bridge, once she triggered herself, she lay dying, but Singed saved her with his grim methods, forever embedding irreversible changes in her, both physically and mentally. At each of these milestones, it was Singed's intervention that shaped how events unfolded. Without him, the story might have ended prematurely, leaving Arcane's plot drastically altered. In Season 2, Singed appears again, only sporadically, yet his impact on events exceeds even the first seasons. It is worth revisiting his greatest creation, Warwick. During the Zaunite uprising, Singed unexpectedly emerges in the crowd. But why? Before, he'd never concerned himself with politics or rebellion, preferring to remain in the shadows with his inhuman experiments. It seems he somehow knew in advance about the brutal crackdown on the riot by the enforcers. More than that, he willingly lets them arrest him, hauling him off to jail without resistance. This appears to be a careful stratagem, because there he summons Warwick to blood, igniting multiple key events at once. First, Warwick is spotted by Mbessa, who develops a strong interest in him. Second, Warwick meets Jinx, and she recognizes who he used to be, Vander. From then on, he becomes the missing link that reconnects the sisters years later. Meanwhile, thanks to Shimmer, which has enslaved many Zonites, Viktor gets an opportunity to test out medical treatments for infected people, gathering a sort of cult of followers around him. In addition to that, as already mentioned, Mbessa becomes curious about Warwick and together with Caitlyn goes after his creator. Sinjid supports Mbessa in Noxus's war against Piltover and leads them to Warwick, who is currently in Viktor's refuge. There, another pivotal event unfolds. Jace kills Viktor, but Sinjid revives him, granting him the chance to attain that final evolution. This, again, dramatically alters the story's trajectory. Ultimately, Sinjid remains the figure propelling the plot both indirectly through inventions such as Shimmer and directly by saving Jinx and Viktor and creating Warwick. The final point in Sinjid's story is his crowning achievement. He manages to bring his daughter back to life, who we discover is Oriana. And at this moment we realize something astounding. All this time, he stayed in the background, not merely advancing the plot but steadily pursuing his own goals. Unlike the other characters whose fates are tied up in war, power, and loss, Sinjid invariably does exactly what he intends. In the end, he's the only one who doesn't lose anything truly significant. For instance, Caitlyn loses her mother, Echo loses Benzo, Jinx loses far too much to enumerate, and so forth. War, destruction, death. Everyone else's story concludes with losses, but not his. Sinjid stayed his course, step by step, and finally accomplished what he'd been working toward all along. He truly won at life. But there's another detail I find intriguing. The only place Sinjid apparently doesn't influence events is the alternate universe presented in the second season's 7th episode. Here it is left uncertain whether he's alive at that point or if his story ended earlier. Yet if you think about it, in the main timeline each character suffers losses, except for one, Sinjid. Now let us take a look at the parallel world where everything is basically going well for everyone. Well, almost. Vi is dead here, which is unfortunate to say so. We can guess that for Sinjid, it all ran in reverse. If he avoided losses in the main timeline, in this universe he likely faced tragedy or wasn't around to see these events. After all, there is no Shimmer or chemical meddling in this timeline, Vander is alive and thus Warwick never materializes. So what became of Sinjid? As with other enigmatic figures like Mel, Jace, Viktor, and Caitlyn, we can only speculate. In summary, Sinjid is the hidden engine behind every key event in Arcane. He created Shimmer and subjugated much of Zon, carried out monstrous experiments that led to uncovering the path to near immortality, mentored Viktor, giving him the means to begin his arcane transformation, rescued Jinx from the brink of death and molded her into who she became, created Warwick, revived Viktor and helped him achieve his final evolution, aided Mbessa in her war against Piltover, brought Oriana to existence, reviving his lost daughter. And in the end, he's the only one who didn't lose anything of real importance. This individual won the entire series. He got all he wanted. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please support our work by liking, subscribing, and ringing that bell. And see you guys soon over a mug of the finest ale in all of Runeterra.